I've been in Toledo my whole entire life. Moved to Michigan when I was really, really young with my aunt and uncle. They had many kids in their 3-bedroom home, and they invited my mom and her 3 kids there. We lived there until I was in, getting ready to go into first grade. And my mom had a boyfriend in Toledo, and he was a married man. And my aunt and uncle was not going to tolerate that. They told her she had to move. And it was very shortly after we moved, he started to molest me and my sister. And it soon turned into taking photos and taking me to his friends, and it just snowballed. And it was, I wouldn't say it was strange, because it almost became just a part of who I was. You know, I loved going to school, not for the typical reason. It wasn't to learn. It was because at that moment, while I'm at that school, all I had to do was sit there and be. And the teachers thought I was retarded, that there was something mentally wrong with me. And there wasn't nothing wrong with me. I just was broken. I was dead. So at the school, I was able to be freed for those moments. You know, because nobody made me do anything. Nobody tried to take my pants down. Nobody tried to shove anything in my mouth. Nobody would talk to me or touch me. So at those moments, that was okay. You know, and I used to have nightmares. That was my nightmare. Not being able to make it up the stairs to school to get to that classroom. That was a nightmare. It wasn't because I enjoyed learning or reading. I didn't even learn anything in school. I didn't learn math. I didn't learn English. I didn't nothing. Because all I did was sit there. I didn't care about none of that. You know, and I did that my entire life. My stepfather died when I was 15. So from 6 to 15, that was just who I was. So when he died, I didn't have these options or these ideas to do anything more. This is who I am. I'm a prostitute. I'm a hoe. So I met this other man that knew my stepfather, and he gave me a handful of pills and a bottle of Jack Daniels. That was the perfect solution for my life. Because all of a sudden, now I'm free. All of a sudden, those nightmares no longer haunt me. No longer all that stuff that happened in that 10 years is there. It's all disappeared. Now I only had one problem: getting my drugs and alcohol. That was it. So it made life simple. You know, people might not understand that, but for me, if you go through 10 years of sexual trauma at that level, laying up with men and women that were sent there to protect you, of course drugs and alcohol is a perfect solution. And it was for me. So I had my first son when I was 19, and I was excited. I was very excited. You know, somebody can love me. And he did. He loved me to pieces. Well, then I got pregnant again. And this was probably the second time I died. This time I got pregnant by a John, and I was pregnant for twins. So that's what made it scary, because all the Johns I messed with were white. So inside of me, I knew what my son was going to be capable of, because I knew all white men were child molesters and rapists. That's what I believed to the core of who I was. Nobody could have told me any different, because that's what I was taught. That's what I was told every single day of my life. So how is my son can be any different than the rest of the world? So the drug abuse got stronger and harder. And I just couldn't do it no more. I'm selling drugs, I'm prostituting, I'm working. You know, I'm doing all this stuff just to escape. And every single day when I had to touch this baby, it killed me. It killed me to the core, because I knew what I was raising. He was going to be the one to take my son or daughter's life because of who he was. And nobody could tell me any difference. You know, I remember walking down LaGrange Street or down any of these streets. The North End is huge at being holy rollers. And Catholic churches were the worst for me, because those people chose to marry the devil. Because I didn't understand how God and the devil were two different people when I was 6 years old and God took my life from me. What did I do so bad at 6 years old for him to take my life and do this to me? I wasn't good enough to be Daniel. I wasn't good enough for you to come and shield me. And I wasn't. He left me and abandoned me. So I believed that God and the devil were the same person my entire life until I was 31. He never stepped in front of the bullet for me. He left me to die. He abandoned me like everybody else. So how could he be any different? So then a couple years go by, I get pregnant again. 2003. This time it's with twin girls, 2 sets of twins. I'm like, really? So now I have 5 children. Faith, my youngest set, Faith in Heaven, they were born at 6 months. Severely sick, on full oxygen, on monitors. They both flatlined at home, 1 day apart. One flatlined and died. St. V's brought her back. The next day, the other one flatlined and died, and then St. V saved her life as well. And I just couldn't understand. Why do you keep giving me children or doing this and that? All you're doing is torturing me. So I knew I was raising 5 children to do certain things. My oldest son, he was going to be a drug dealer. I was pretty slick with it, so I could teach him. Tequila and Terrell, my son Terrell, white boy, he was going to be my killer. I was going to teach him. Somebody, if I have a problem, I'm going to let him kill him off. Faith in Heaven and Tequila, they were going to be prostitutes. What else could I give them? That's all I had. But still, everybody kept telling me that this God loved me so much. But yeah, he didn't step in front of that bullet for me. All I did at 6 years old was steal some sugar cubes. Sugar cubes from the kitchen. And I knew that's why I was sent to hell. I knew that's why my life was bad. What else was I to think? Daniel was not to be my name. And I knew that. I wasn't good enough for God. So in 2006, I tried to commit suicide a couple times, 94, and then again in 96. Took about 180 pills both times. Was at Riverside Hospital, and they told my mom I was brain dead. Well, the next day I wake up to all people holding my hand, but a nun in full gear. She looked like a straight, I was like, oh my God, I'm in hell. And I didn't understand, like, why do you still have me here? You know, so suicide was always on my mind because I wanted to die. I was done. But then in 2003, when I had Faith in Heaven, my aunt and uncle took them to their house, had them there for a couple years in Michigan. They came back in 2005, had a full CSB case, and I lost custody of all 5 of my children. And they placed all 5 of my children with my mother. And I was so livid. It was on February 22nd, they took custody of them. February 26th, I asked my mom if I could come see Faith in Heaven for their birthday. She said no. I'm like, seriously? You're gonna tell me no? Do you know who I am? And the dope man just left the apartment I was at, left a gun, dope, all there. I said, I'm gonna do this right this time. I planned on going to kill my mom and those 5 children and then kill myself. I feel you can't go wrong with the gun. You know exactly where to hit it. And my oldest son heard the conversation and told the police how to get into the house. And by telling them how to get in the house, I ended up going to jail that day. So when I was in jail those 14 days, probably about 3 or 4 days after I'm there, Lewis Avenue Baptist Church women came up there. These women had the long dresses, looked all perfect, and had Bibles. And I'm sitting next to somebody, I mean, I was rough. But this woman was robbing banks for a living. Like, she was rougher than me, I thought. And I was like, man, don't they know the God and the devil are the same person? And she was like, girl, she hit me. She gave me one of those knuckle shots that your brother did when you were younger, and hit me. It was either my leg or arm. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna go get this Bible. Now my reading was not very great, so I said, let me go get, I'm gonna look at the pictures. That's all, I'm gonna look at the pictures in it, right? I get that Bible. There is no pictures in this Bible. There were some maps in this Bible that I don't think were quite spelled correctly because there was letters and names. There were like 15, 20 letters. I'm like, there's no way that's a word. So after a couple days, I continued to pretend I'm reading the Bible, and I came across the verse. Anyone that hurts the littlest one that believeth in me, might as well cast a millstone around your neck and cast yourself in the depths of the sea. I'm like, that made me a little mad, because I'm like, dang, was I wrong all this time? But I'm not a little kid no more. Do I deserve this? Will he still take me? And from that moment on, I wanted to investigate. So I ended up moving over to sober living in the jail, and I ended up getting with a counselor over there. She ended up finding a transitional house that I could go to. So I got out in 14 days on a sheriff's release. I ended up walking from downtown Toledo to South and Spencer, in the south end of Toledo, and started programming almost immediately. The first time in my entire life I told the truth, I told my CSB worker that I was sober now. And she said, Miss Campbell, I thought you didn't use drugs and alcohol. So I'm like, okay, I was wrong. But I ended up entering drug court, had to do mental health tasks, a prostitution diversion program, all this stuff, work a third shift job, get 1 hour, about an hour and a half, I think, a week with my kids on a Saturday. And that's what I did for the next 11 months. But during that time, I ended up going to Cedar Creek, sitting in the chapel. And, they do a fill-in out there, or they did at that time, where you fill in the answer. And I think every time I went to that church, God escaped the world. He did not worry about nobody else. He sat right next to me and walked me through that process to see him. So once I was able to see him, I ended up being able to get my kids back in 11 months, completed all my programming, started working for a nonprofit that specialized in adult women and youth that have been trafficked / in prostitution. And then in 2011, I ended up leaving that. Me and another young woman, Sister Sandy Sherman, started Rahab's Heart, where we specialize in adult women and youth that have been trafficked. And we don't have a program set up. We don't tell them what they need to do, because we can't. It's not, you can't do it. It don't work like that. But it's about us bringing the cross to them. It's about them being able to see Christ, because he's the only one that can release any of that. I know God put people in my path and on my journey to guide me, but it was always the focus was always on him and about him. It was never about them. They never asked me to cross the street and come to where they are. They walked where I was. So they walked in my pits of hell until I was able to walk out of it. They took their light into my darkness and guided me through that. And that was through Christ, and I believe that.